After 17 years of marriage, my wife went clubbing with colleagues on a work trip, ignored my messages all night, deleted photos/texts, booked an Uber to a male colleague's hotel, and then lied to me and even to our couples counselor. Now she insists I'm being jealous and controlling. I never thought I'd be the one writing something like this, but here I am. My wife and I are both in our early 40s, not immigrants to the US, and we've been married for 17 years. We have 2 kids, and on paper, our lives look pretty close to ideal. We've both taken care of ourselves. Neither of us has had any significant change in appearance since our 20s. We both weigh about the same as when we met, and I'd say we're both still in good shape. We've built successful careers, raised kids, and have what most people would consider a very stable household. About a year ago, though, our lives took a big turn. The project I'd been working on at my company was shut down. At the time, I was a staff engineer making about $500K total comp on an L1 visa. I had external offers on the table, senior staff roles that would have bumped me up to $700K. But those roles required switching to an O1 visa. My wife, around the same time, got a huge opportunity, a director-level role at $500,000, which was massive for her career trajectory. But the catch? She wasn't eligible for an O1, and H1B is a lottery. That meant the only way she could accept a role was if I stayed on my L1, which granted her a work permit. I asked her if she considered day 1 CPT as a backup, but she flat out said no. And so, for the good of the family and her career, I stayed at my company, stepped down into a senior engineer role, 2 levels lower than what I could have had externally, moved into a totally different field, and essentially accepted slower career growth. At the time, it felt like the right thing to do. Family comes first, right? And I wanted to support her career the way she supported mine before. But here's where it gets complicated. Over the years, even though our marriage has always been supportive on the surface, I started to feel her attraction for me fade. It wasn't anything obvious at first, but more like death by 1,000 cuts. Our relationship started to feel less like a marriage and more like a partnership, co-parents managing a household. We had the routines down: work, kids, chores, bills. But the spark, the desire, the feeling of being wanted, it just wasn't there anymore. Then came May of this year, and my entire world fell apart. She had a week-long work trip, and on the last night, when she could have flown home, she chose not to. That night turned into a nightmare for me, because instead of being honest and communicative, she broke off all contact with me. No calls, no replies. Over the next few days, my trust in her unraveled completely. Here's just a fraction of what happened. She didn't tell me she was planning on going to a nightclub with colleagues, staying out until about 4 a.m. She ignored my texts all night, only replying to me at 10 a.m. the next morning. She hid and deleted evidence, photos and messages with colleagues from that night. She only admitted things piecemeal, never upfront, always letting me uncover something first before she'd concede. She got furious with me for going through her phone, even though the only reason I did was because my gut screamed something was wrong. She lied in couples therapy, insisting she didn't have her phone that night, until I confronted her with proof that she had sent texts to our kid and others during that time. Worst of all, I later discovered she booked an Uber to a colleague's hotel after the nightclub, not her own. The ride was canceled, but the fact that she even booked it shattered me. When confronted, she told me that she and the male colleague ended up sharing a cab, and she was dropped off at her hotel. Now, here's the kicker. To her credit, she did open a DM thread with a colleague in front of me. But instead of just asking him directly what happened, she framed it in this very leading way, something like, "How did I get back to my hotel? You dropped me off, right?" It wasn't neutral. It wasn't a genuine attempt to clarify. It was a prompt for him to corroborate her story. And even that only came up a week after the initial confrontation. So through the entire first wave of discovery, my confronting her, us going to counseling, me piecing together deleted messages and Uber receipts, she never once volunteered the fact that she hadn't gone back to her hotel alone. I had to drag it out of her, piece by painful piece. I can't explain how badly this shattered me. It's not just about whether or not something physical happened with this colleague, though I'd be lying if I said I wasn't haunted by that thought every single day. It's about the lying, the hiding, the defensiveness, the willingness to gaslight me and even lie to a couples therapist just to maintain her version of events. The casual way she ignored me and our family that night to go clubbing until 4 a.m. The fact that she was even in a position where she booked a ride to another man's hotel. It broke something in me. My heart, yes, but also my trust. Because I thought I knew this woman, my wife of 17 years, the mother of my kids, the woman I sacrificed my career growth for so she could have hers. And yet, when it mattered most, she wasn't transparent. She didn't care about how her actions would look or feel to me. And even when I confronted her, she doubled down, lied, and let me twist in the wind until I shoved the evidence in her face. She keeps telling me nothing inappropriate happened that night. That's her story, and she won't budge. According to her, the only reason she deleted photos, messages, and details was because she knew I wouldn't be okay with her going to the nightclub. She says I'm the jealous, controlling type, so instead of being upfront, she hid it. Her words, she didn't want to confuse me. And I'll admit, I can somewhat understand that excuse on the surface. I can imagine her thinking, this is harmless, but he'll get upset, so I just won't tell him. But what I can't understand is why she kept lying. Why she looked me in the eye in counseling and swore she didn't have her phone that night, when I later pulled up proof that she'd been texting our kid and others at 3 a.m. Why she only admitted to things in tiny, forced fragments as I uncovered them myself. That's not protecting me from confusion. That's gaslighting. That's betraying my trust. After weeks of confrontation, fights, and broken sleep, we reached an agreement in May. She would pause all work trips and after-hours socials until my heart healed. I said I couldn't give an exact timeline, but told her to think of 1 year as a baseline. 1 year of showing me with actions, not just words, that she was willing to prioritize us. I even compromised by letting her attend 2 already planned work trips, so she didn't look unreliable at work. Beyond that, a pause. 3 months later, she's already pushing back. At the first opportunity for another overnight trip, she came to me asking to throw out the agreement. When I reminded her of what we'd agreed, she bristled and accused me of holding her back. I offered a compromise, no overnight trips, but local after-hours events would be fine. That wasn't enough. She told me it's still unfair, that I need to stop being stuck in the past. And then came the threat. If I'm still not over it in another 3 months, she'll divorce me. That cut deeper than the lies ever did. I asked for 1 year. Just 1 year to feel safe again. To rebuild trust in a marriage that's been shaken to its core. She couldn't give me that and instead turned it back on me, making me the problem, calling me controlling. I can't help but feel like her career, her colleagues, her independence, all of that ranks above me, above us, above the marriage we've built for 17 years. Now I'm stuck at a crossroads. Maybe I am asking for too much. Maybe 1 year is unreasonable. Maybe I am holding on too tightly to my pain. But another part of me screams, if she can't even give me 1 year after blowing up my trust, what does that say about where I actually stand in her life? Because here's the truth. If the roles were reversed, if I had hidden texts, deleted photos, booked a ride to a woman's hotel, and lied to her face until caught, she wouldn't be asking me for a year. She'd be gone. And that double standard gnaws at me. I can admit that, at this point, my wife probably sees me as jealous and controlling. From her perspective, I'm the one saying no to her work trips, questioning her late nights, double-checking her stories. I can see how that must look from the outside. But it didn't start this way. I wasn't always suspicious. I wasn't always on edge. When we first got together, I didn't think twice about her going out with friends, traveling internationally for work, or spending nights away. Girls' trips, conferences, late dinners, I never batted an eye. I trusted her completely. I was proud of her independence and her career. But over the years, small events began to pile up. Each one chipped away at my sense of safety until I became the man I never wanted to be. Cautious, hyper-aware, questioning. One of the first cracks appeared nearly 15 years ago. She went on a one-on-one dinner with a male colleague and didn't tell me until after. It wasn't the act itself that stung. It was the lack of transparency. Why not just mention it beforehand? Why make me find out afterward, like it was a detail that didn't matter? To her, it was nothing. To me, it planted the first seed of doubt. About 8 years ago, when our kids were still toddlers, she attended an overnight company event just half an hour away from home. Instead of coming back to us that night, she stayed over. I was left to handle the chaos of 2 little ones alone, while she found it embarrassing to return home in the middle of the night. That one cut deep. It felt like she chose appearances with colleagues over her role as a mom and partner. Then, 6 years ago, she planned a full week-long trip to the other side of the world without even consulting me first. I only found out after the tickets were booked. At the time, we had a baby and a toddler, and suddenly I was supposed to manage solo parenting for a week while she flew off. Again, it wasn't just the trip itself. It was the lack of discussion. the assumption that I'd be fine with it. Fast forward to just half a year ago, and things got even more unsettling. For years, we'd shared our locations, me, her, and our kids, purely out of convenience and peace of mind. One day, she just turned hers off without explanation. No fight, no conversation, just flipped the switch. I asked why, and her answer was vague at best. Looking back now, it feels like foreshadowing, like another piece of the puzzle I didn't want to see. And then, of course, there's the recent event 3 months ago. The nightclub, the deleted photos, the Uber to another hotel, the lies upon lies until I dragged the truth out piece by piece. That night wasn't just about what did or didn't happen. It was about every past moment where I had swallowed my unease, every time I told myself not to overreact. It was all those cracks in the foundation finally splitting wide open. To be fair, I need to include her side of things. After everything came to light in May, the nightclub, the deleted messages, the hidden photos, the Uber booking, I confronted her with the pieces I had uncovered. And each time, when she was backed into a corner, she provided an explanation. Her words were something like this: "After a very stressful period preparing for the demo at the convention, things went great, and I just needed to decompress and celebrate with my colleagues on the last night. Yes, I had my phone, but I didn't want to deal with you that night. I knew you'd have a problem with me going clubbing with colleagues, and I wasn't prepared to not go. So, I pretended I hadn't seen your messages until it was too late to reply. I went clubbing with male colleagues. Yes, but there were female colleagues too. You can even see one in one of the deleted photos. As for the Uber, I totally forgot I even ordered it to my colleague's hotel. Our hotels were right next to each other, and the plan was to split the fare. But in the end, the Uber couldn't reach the nightclub, so we just shared a taxi, and he dropped me off at my hotel." That's her explanation. And on the surface, it could be plausible. But what still hurts me is not just the specifics of that night. It's the secrecy and the dishonesty, the deliberate choice to hide things because she didn't want to deal with me. She admitted she ignored me on purpose, not because her phone was dead or misplaced, but because she wanted the freedom to do as she pleased without me knowing. And when I pressed further, she doubled down. She's insisted that nothing inappropriate happened that night, and maybe that's true. But her reasoning for the secrecy was what broke me, that she already knew I wouldn't be okay with it, so she decided to lie and cover her tracks rather than risk conflict. To me, that's not partnership, that's premeditated deception. More recently, in a kind of virtual counseling session we did together, she put her perspective into words. Her prompt to the AI counselor read something like, "I need to give you a bit of context of what's happening recently. After the event in May, there's been an agreement made from my husband's perspective. But from mine, I don't think I did anything majorly wrong. And I don't think I deserve to be punished in this way." And that, I think, gets to the heart of our disconnect. From her perspective, this was a misunderstanding blown out of proportion. A stressful week, a night of blowing off steam, a few poor choices in communication, but ultimately nothing happened. So in her eyes, there's nothing serious to rebuild. She doesn't see the secrecy, the lies, the deliberate choices as a betrayal in the same way I do. From my perspective, it's not about whether she slept with someone else or not. It's about trust. It's about me being left in the dark, ignored, misled, and made to feel like I was crazy for doubting her, only to later find that my instincts were right, that things weren't adding up. Even in therapy, she was still lying until I brought hard evidence. How do I rebuild trust on that? So now we're at an impasse. She thinks my request for her to pause overnight work trips for a year is controlling, jealous, even punitive. She feels like she's being punished for something she doesn't see as a crime. I see it differently, as the bare minimum step to help me feel safe again, a sign that she's willing to put our marriage first. But when she frames it as punishment, it makes me wonder if we're even speaking the same language anymore.